Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Leo, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of October 2025. I hope you're well. I'm using the Tower of the Divine for you today. Here it is. Before we begin, if the reading resonates with you and you would like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That's via the first link in the description box below. Alternatively, you can come and join us over on the Circle platform. My private community is called the Order of the Phoenix, and over there you can get access to all of the extended content for no additional cost beyond the membership fee. And if you choose to, you can come and join us at the tier where we do live classes twice a month in all sorts of modalities. It's not just tarot, although tarot is there. We've got magic, we've got we've got astrology, we've got all sorts of things. So if that sounds like it might be of interest to you, you know what to do with that link. Right, Leo. Let's flip the camera around here a little bit. Some of you may know whenever I start a reading, before I do any kind of reading, I do a short meditation. It's more of a connection with energy, really. And there was one big, watch my language, one big phrase that came through for you, and it was waking up. And I think that is probably going to be a message that is going to cause joy for Leos all over, right? Because has it not felt since Mars was in Leo last year and then started retrograding that everything's just kind of gone a bit wrong? Like, it's kind of difficult to know where the motivation, where to draw that motivation from. Certainly doesn't feel like there's been much in the way of forward motion anywhere. So that waking up message was, I certainly received it with some joy. So let's go. 5, 4, 3, 2 and 1. And the cards we have for your recent past are the 5 of Pentacles. Current energy is the 9 of Pentacles. And what do you have coming towards you? It is the 7 of Swords. Now, this is traditionally considered to be a rather negative card. However, I recently ran a class on negative cards in the tarot, so I hope that everybody's kind of looking at that a little bit more holistically, we might say. But look what we have at the bottom of the deck here. We have the Wheel of Fortune. Things are twisting and turning and changing, and certainly that eclipse season has felt like it brought a lot of that, right? So, I just assumed, I assumed correctly that we were going to use the Wild Unknown Tarot for the clarifiers. So I'll just give this a shuffle. We'll put some meat on the bones of this. Notice that we have all minor arcana in terms of what's been going on with you at the moment. Now, this does not mean that anything that has been happening with you is less important, right? Because we only have one major arcana on the card, on the table. What it means is that what's going on at the moment is yours to control, right? There are things happening here that are yours to either think about things differently, start to engage with, start to work with, however it shows up, right? And the big universal forces that slap us around haven't been showing up quite so much for you in your past, in your future, in the right now, except that the Wheel of Fortune that's at the bottom of the deck here, I think, means that a lot of what is happening is a lot more important than you have been giving it credit for, Leo. I don't know if you've been feeling a little bit cast adrift. I think I have. The whole of 2025 has felt weird, and it's been rough. There's been a lot of stuff going on, and a lot of internal soul searching, dark nights of the soul. There's a lot of that that's happened in 2025. Now, coming off the back of an eclipse season that was, let's face it, a little bit spicy, where we say everything that happens, during eclipse season generally will end up being important in some way or another, even if we can't quite see it yet. I feel like this energy is very much continuing, right? It's continuing a story that's been going on for a while for you and will continue hereafter. But situating the energy in terms of what is yours to do what is yours to be involved with, what it is that is yours to take control of. That's what these minor arcana cards are saying to me here. So let's have a look at this Five of Pentacles. Wow. So we have the Hierophant at the bottom of the deck, and we have at the bottom of the deck as the first clarifier, and we have the Nine of Wands showing up reversed. That's very interesting combination. We'll get to what it means in a second. Tell me about the Nine of Pentacles, please. Why is this here for Leo? Empress reversed. Well, that double Taurus with the Hierophant, and then the Empress reversed, and the Ace of Wands, and the Six of Pentacles, and then tell me about the Seven of Swords. Why is this here? God, I hate it when cards fall on the floor. They say to do it with me all the time. Okay, we have the Temperance card. And let's get one more for the Seven of Swords, please. We have Queen of Pentacles. Five of Wands is at the bottom of the deck here. Now, Five of Wands is often a card that talks about conflict. It can speak about coming into active conflict with other people. But it can also talk about the kinds of internal conflict that we're wrestling with, all the time. Let me just put my citrine over there. It's Saturn in Leo, so it is a Leo card, and it does talk about things being unstable, right? Because that's what fives represent, certainly in the minor arcana. So the Five of Wands alternatively can be a sense of competition, and almost like you've got to be in it to win it. And the fact that it's Saturn in Leo makes me feel like saying to you, when you've been going through something, right, we don't back out of it, right? That's not the way to avoid whatever's being thrown up here. What we have to do is keep going through until it is completed, because this is what Saturn is wanting from us. Now, the Five and Six of Wands are an interesting pairing of cards that I feel almost have to be read together, even if they don't show up together, right? So we don't have a Six of Wands here, which is victory and success, and often conspicuous public success. It's talking about the struggle that's going on in the background. Like, so for example, right, I'm an early degree Leo moon, so the decan that my moon is in is represented by the Five of Wands, but my sun is the Six of Wands, right? There's this constant tension dynamic here where one kind of needs the other to make sense, right? When you have a big victory, it's off the back of all of the effort that you've put in to make something happen. Hence this kind of competitive, you've got to be in it to win it, and all this sort of stuff that you can see about the Five of Wands. Because the Six of Wands that hasn't had any effort expended to get there, I mean, what does it really mean? What value does it really hold? Where have you grown? What have you actually achieved? I've used the example sometimes of challenging a 2-year-old to a fell race or something like that, right? Or a sprint. You as an adult and a 2-year-old. And the 2-year-old's got distracted by a blade of grass that riffled in a particular way and has already gone off there. But you complete the race and you look at me, I'm the best, I'm wonderful. Well, there was no Five of Wands there. Not really. So what we see is that we are in the midst of some sort of struggle at the moment, and I do think for Leos it's mostly internal. Pluto is, at least by house, opposing anything that you might have in Leo at the moment, and so that's when Pluto opposes anything, it does feel like a little bit of a struggle. But the Wheel of Fortune here is like it's an additional compounding of the message that what you're going through right here is important. Like, there is an end goal to it, and it's important that we maintain at least some degree of faith that there is a point to it, because without the sweetener of the Six of Wands, without the carrot that is the Six of Wands, the Five of Wands simply becomes us tying ourselves up in knots. So with all of that said, I feel like although we may not have the conspicuous public success that Jupiter in Leo, the Six of Wands, might indicate, everything that is happening now is almost assuredly pushing that way. And, we've just got to keep grinding, really. That said, though, it does feel like something is shifting really quite strongly here. Now, I'm going to get my little sticker selenite. We start with the Five of Pentacles. Now, this is your recent past. And when I say recent past, it could be this morning when you got out of bed. But alternatively, it could be anything as far back as 6 weeks back from hence, right? Or thereabouts. Because it's simply a moment that is not here, not right now, not this second, but something that has been in that time frame. And the Five of Pentacles, much like the Five of Wands, is also talking about an instability. Now, with the Five of Pentacles, it could be an instability around finances. The material realm is often given to be very closely associated with the Pentacles, but it doesn't just speak to that. For me, the Pentacles are about energetic investment. So your time, your care, your effort, your money, your love, these are all things that can be represented by Pentacles, as well as the idea of just simply value. Now, when you've got a suit that talks about value and energy and input and building and the things of the material, and then you have a card that speaks about an instability in that. We can see instability in your material environment. We can see instability in and of the things that you find valuable, but we could also find an instability in where you put your focus, what it is that you choose to engage with, the level of which you feel capable to engage at all, perhaps, full stop, with things. And I think that there's something quite interesting that's showing up here with this Nine of Wands reversed and the Hierophant, because the Nine of Wands reversed, as well as speaking to what it is that you specifically do, because wands are about action, they're about doing, they're about quite literally moving your body around sometimes, as well as things like passion and creativity, the things that drive you to move your body around and do something. The nines for me are about your personal management of that. And I feel like this Nine of Wands reversed is feeling like, it's been feeling a little bit like you've been doing a lot of things on autopilot, Leo, because the drive that I was talking about, actually, even before we pulled any cards out, the motivation, the why am I doing this, it feels like there's a space where that should have been. And there might be things that you kind of want to move towards, but at this point, trying to work out how you're supposed to do it has been something that's been notable by its absence, let's put it that way, right? But the other thing that Nine of Wands talks about, and I think that this is very, very important in your case, Leo, is boundaries. Now, I know I'm banging on about boundaries all the time. I've been here 6 years and I haven't stopped banging on about boundaries the whole time. But I do wonder if there's something that's been energetically draining you. To the extent that it's effectively removed what has felt like the motivation and the drive, the reason why you do things. And it's here with the Hierophant. Now, the Hierophant is Taurus energy, it's earth energy, it's very slow, it can be very rigid, it's very fixed. So we have this idea of fixedness going on here, and it's of a nature that is not yours, Leo. And it's showing up next to, staring at, cawing at, actually, even if you will, this Nine of Wands. So already we've got an idea that there are places where there should be boundaries for you that there are not, because things have changed, but maybe you haven't noticed that things have changed because you've been in this kind of state of fixedness, of rigidity, perhaps, where you're trying to keep all the plates up in the air and trying to keep everything as you feel it should be. But we also have this idea that what fundamentally drives you and what gives you passion, what gives you the ability to just keep going, because Leos are kind of workaholics in all senses. You know, the go big or go home is Leo to a T, right? The ability to go big seems to have been absent because what usually underpins that has gone. Now, it's not because you've lost all your creativity, or you've lost all your drive, you've lost your passion, you've lost your motivation. It's because you have changed so much that the rules of the game have almost changed. It's like you've shifted position without realizing that that's what you'd done, because you were focusing on trying to keep everything very still and very rigid, right? Because when things start to break down, you're like, oh no, I'm trying to hold things up and whatnot. And the end result is that it feels like it doesn't matter which way you turn. What you're dealing with is losses. What you're dealing with is a sense of feeling detached from those things that should give you joy, that should give you motivation, that should give you drive. And to some extent, I would feel like you've almost forgotten what it feels like to be you, Leo. But I think it's because you're doing it to an old reference point. Let's pull out the Waite-Smith here and see if it's got anything else to say. Maybe about this Five of Pentacles. Wow, it does. Am I going to take all of them? Oh, fuck it. Let's take them. Right. Nine of Swords, Temperance, the Star card, and the Devil card at the bottom of the deck. The star is about where it is that you're going, right? It's the star that sits on the horizon. It's the star that you follow when you're trying to find your way. It's on its side. It's kind of there, kind of not. It's very difficult for you to throw yourself towards something when you don't really know what you're throwing yourself towards, or even whether that will be fulfilling for you. It is also, though, a card of healing, and this is quite interesting because we've got another card of healing with the Temperance card, a card that talks about balance, and if the Temperance card is on its side, it is not balanced. And then we have the Nine of Swords, and I feel like there's been an internal mental battle for you all year, Leo. Maybe I'm not just speaking for myself when I say 2025 has actually been really, really hard, and there's been a lot of internal. It's not navel gazing because that makes it sound like it's a leisurely activity. Like there's been an internal grind to try and face the things that you fear, face the things that have been perhaps hijacking your energy, but I just don't feel like you quite got the balance right. Well, I know you haven't got the balance right, Leo, at all, because everything's half-cooked, right? Nothing feels like that pure motivation that's kind of coming up from somewhere you don't know where, that drives you forwards. It's just being absent. And you've done really well not to fall into difficult negative states, but they've been sitting on the periphery. It's like it would be very easy for you to just let go and fall back into a state of nihilism, into a state of, what the fuck is the point? Why does it matter? This sort of thing. It's close, but you haven't embraced it. Such to the point where you've ended up spiraling violently. There's something like, when you get bitten by a mosquito and it comes up and it's really itchy, the kind of self-discipline that is required to not scratch that, because you know it's going to feel fucking divine in the moment, but then as soon as you stop scratching it, it's just going to be a constant irritant. That's how everything feels like it's been for you this year. And the amount of energy that you've had to put into, metaphorically speaking, not scratching that for short-term gain, of just, the relief or the whatever it is. I don't even know what it is. Has been a lot harder than anybody's really given you credit for. I think 2025 has been thoroughly discombobulating, and I think at almost every point the devil's been sat there tempting you to go a particular way, to spiral, to let go of meaning, to stop looking for sense in everything and just wallow, and you haven't taken it, Leo. And that's been really, really hard. It certainly speaks to this Five of Wands here. And it would also speak to why this Wheel of Fortune is indicating that this time has been so important to you. Even if it doesn't feel like it's taking you anywhere, it has been so important to you. So then when we move into your current energy, we've got the Nine of Pentacles right here. And the jump from the Five of Pentacles to the Nine of Pentacles is really quite strong. Particularly when we've got it with the Empress reversed. Now there's a strange sort of message here Leo, but I feel like at its core, it's revolving around these two Taurian cards, which is to say the Hierophant and the Empress reversed. Oh, I couldn't fucking remember the word there. Reversed. Because both of them represent fixed Earth. Both of them represent the sign of Taurus. And sometimes when we talk about the Hierophant, we talk about the immovable, the rigid, the inflexible, the very slow moving, the clamped down, strong energy on which things can be built. But correspondingly in the negative also means that it doesn't change very quickly. And I do think a lot of that is about the internal space for you and the way that you've been trying to hold all the plates up in the air. The Empress, generally speaking, is a card that we think is great. Right? It's about abundance, it's about fertility, it's about creativity quite often. It's associated with the sign of Venus. So, we've got all of those nice, good, comfortable things that we like. And indeed, the Empress does represent that kind of comforting embrace that we would expect from a mother, right? It's the archetypal mother card. Sometimes when we see the Empress, what we've got is an idea of something that is gestating, something that is percolating, particularly when that is of a creative nature. Now, the fact that she's showing up in the reverse here makes me feel like this idea of comfort that we just touched on a minute ago is possibly the thing on which everything hinges, because we've got two very fixed energies. What am I trying to say here? This is quite nuanced, Leo. It's quite interesting. It's like you're trying to keep everything right, but you know that there is no progression in and that. Well, we'll have essentially a representation of the comfort zone. And you've been doing a lot of work internally, because I think internally it's been very uncomfortable, but you've been externally trying to keep everything the same and as it was. And I think you've changed to the extent internally now that you realise that the comfort zone that you've created outside of yourself, or at least the one that you've been trying to maintain, actually needs to fall to make space for the next chapter. Because the Empress doesn't feel exactly negative to me here in this position and in this place, but it does feel like it's restrictive, and it's almost to the extent that you've noticed the way that you've bound yourself. And I think that all of this has been happening on the subconscious level rather than necessarily too much outside of you. But to jump from an energy of instability and not really knowing, where to put your focus, where to put your attention, where to put your energy, and feeling that sense of loss, feeling that sense of isolation, we're leaping now to a card where you are taking control of something. Just like the Nine of Wands represents the management of what you do and the boundaries that you put up and all that kind of thing. The Nine of Pentacles is like a representation of how you manage your energy, how you manage your sense of value and what you do with that, what is valuable to you and how you propagate that moving forwards. But it puts it all very much in your lap. And it's here with the Ace of Wands and then the Six of Pentacles. There is something about the nature of balance that needs to be addressed for you. We've seen it here in the Star card on its side. We've seen it in the Temperance card on its side. We know that there is something imbalanced almost to an extent. We can see it between the competing energies of Taurus here, both of them representing fixed earth, one wanting to stay exactly where it is and be rigid and be solid and be dependable, slow, all that kind of thing. And the almost more wild energy of the Empress, although, I sort of feel like in this instance what we're talking about is comfort more than anything else. It feels to me like there's a holy shit moment coming up for you in the present moment, which is, I'm in a comfort zone. I've been trying to stay in a comfort zone. I am now uncomfortable about being in this comfort zone. Everything's a little bit too comfortable. And the balance that I've been looking for hasn't been here because actually I've been trying to just do all of this work inside but keep everything outside going the way that it always has. And this is suggesting that there's almost like a big kaboom where the external world for you is going to start fairly rapidly matching the changes that have happened internally. I think the difficulty for you has been not really quite understanding the extent of how much things have changed in here for you. Now, this could be around the idea of quite simply what it is that you value, putting more emphasis on valuing your time than money, for example, would be a way that this would play out. But in that moment of realization, where you're thinking about what is important to you, suddenly there seems to be the ability to be able to focus where your focus is needed, because you're choosing to move away from what is comfortable and put yourself into a state of the things that are entirely novel, incidentally creating then the balance that you have been craving this whole time and not achieving. Tell me about the Ace of Wands. We've got the Page of Cups and we've got the Three of Swords. So I think this is really important, Leo, because the Page of Cups for me is always representing a willingness to go there, right? And I think you have been going there with yourself all year emotionally. What's holding me back? Why can't I, why can't I feel that level of drive and motivation that I have done before? Like, what's at the root of it? The answer, quite correctly, as you have deduced, is going to be in you somewhere. But I think there's been so much work to do in there. And it's very difficult to see how far you've come with that. That there's almost a comfort zone that's been created with the problems all being entirely internal. I've talked quite a lot. I've spoken quite a bit over the last few months about bringing things back to base principles and checking our assumptions on stuff. And I think that internally we're all quite comfortable in doing that now. I'm going to try and shy away from using that word comfortable. There is an ease now with recognizing that the stuff going on inside is probably more important than the stuff that is going on outside, right? But there comes a point where what has changed inside needs some sort of expression outside. And I think this is the holy shit epiphany moment that you're coming to, Leo, because when the Three of Swords shows up, particularly as it's showing up here with this Ace of Wands, what we've got is an illusory bubble, an emotional bubble that is being fractured. Let's just shut that window a second. Quite literally run through by the swords of reality, the swords of truth. We've created almost like a comfort zone in choosing to hermit, choosing to work on ourselves internally and all that sort of thing. And that was great. And that was what we were supposed to do. But there needs to be a point where we come out of that again. And I think you've forgotten how to come out of that, Leo, because it's been going on for so long. I mean, if we take Mars and Leo at the point where it's stationed retrograde, and then went back through Leo, then went back through Cancer, then came back, stationed direct, came back through Cancer, came back through Leo, then went into Virgo, and went into Libra. Mars and Scorpio, which has happened in the last couple of days, I think is the most helpful energy that Mars has had to wield for a while. Mars and Libra, obviously, Mars doesn't like being in Libra. Mars and Virgo gets a little bit hyper fixated on detail of things. And if you're already in a state that is majority internalized right now, which is not a bad thing, right? You're not going to be paying attention to the outside stuff. And it's almost like there's been so much stuff going on in here. We haven't had the spoons to think about the changes out here, which has been trying to keep all of that straight so that all of our energy and attention can go this way. I think what this is saying is we've got to a point now where there does need to be an external expression of this. I don't think that you quite realise quite the extent to how much you have changed Leo. And I don't think that you will see that until you start interacting with more people and doing more things, you know, physically moving around in your life a little bit more, instituting changes, because this does feel like it's coming in like a bolt from the blue. Aces don't always do that. I mean, to be fair, you know, when we talk about ace energy, sometimes there's this idea that it just suddenly shows up, an opportunity shows up, a possibility shows up. No, like potential is always sitting there. It's whether you are capable of recognizing that it is sitting there or not that makes the difference. And I think it's the recognition of how hermity you have been, I think possibly, certainly in the last few months, recognizing that you've created a bit of a comfort zone for yourself that is inside here now, where we're working all sorts of things out, you know, working through the conflict and whatever, realizing that it's time to express this outward, show up differently, which is a way that I speak of the Ace of Wands quite often, that is bringing in the balance that has been so elusive for you for the longest time. Right? So when we get into October, what we've got here is the Seven of Swords, the Temperance card, and the Queen of Pentacles. And in light of everything that we've talked about up until this point, this now makes the most fucking sense that we could possibly think. Because the Seven of Swords is associated with taking a risk. It's strategic movements forwards. Now, we can talk about it in terms of deception. You know, it is known as the Thief card and all that kind of thing, right? But there's a polarity that exists within every card, right? It's as an expression of energy. There is a duality that is expressed in every card when it's talking about the energy around. Right? You've done what you needed to do to bring balance. Here it is. And now we're starting to see that more sense, that sense of a more universal balance having been achieved, right? An alchemical process having been completed, that sees you now ready to start taking some risks outside of you, a few gambles, right? Showing up, I think, really quite authentically in a way that's probably going to startle you, Leo, because again, I don't think that you realise the extent to which you have changed. It's almost like you've been waiting for a sign from the universe, or you've been waiting for some sort of expression of permission for you to start moving forwards. And like, absent that, you've been like, well, that's obviously just more internal stuff and more internal stuff and more internal stuff. And you've been dealing with that really diligently. But now the universe is saying, it's time. All of this stuff has been really, really important. But are you in it to win it? Or are you in here to just be a hermit till the end of your days? You know, the Queen of Pentacles is really important here in terms of what it is that we understand that we value, right? The Queens help us make sense of stuff. So in the case of the Queen of Pentacles, right, we are quite fundamentally understanding the value of something. Now, that's often ourselves, but sometimes it can be the value of taking a risk, the value of gambling. I don't mean like quite literally going to casinos. I mean dealing with something that has felt like an overt threat to you, right? Which might be showing up. It might be changing the things that you've been trying to hold steady for the longest time. And understanding that all things need to progress, all things need to be built on, right? And we lead with the value. That's what it's saying. Now, when you take into account that this is also Saturn, because it's Capricorn, right? So it represents Saturn. And we have Saturn in Leo, and we have also had the devil at the bottom of the deck over there, right? We can see how Saturnian themes have been weaving through everything that you have been doing, Leo, up until this point, looking for that balance. That's Saturn in Libra too, just want to point that out, right? And Saturn in Libra is the exalted state of Libra, right? Of Saturn. That's where Saturn likes to hang out, is in Libra, because when we achieve a balance with things, we're getting the message, we're learning the lessons from Saturn. And I think this is where you are, 100%. Tell me about this. What else do we need to know about this? There we go. Oh, Leo. We have the King of Wands. That is Leo right there, right? That's you showing up. We have the Six of Wands, Jupiter in Leo. That is you showing up. It is the results of everything that you have been doing this year finally being put in a place where they can be perceived by other people. Now you notice that we have another Taurus card showing up here with the King of Pentacles, in addition to the two that we've already seen over here. Now the King of Pentacles is the action of you building a thing, right? Now what did I say about the Queen of Pentacles? Right, she shows us what we need to build on. Right, she shows us what we have, what has value, right? She's passing the baton over to the King of Pentacles to say, now it's about the active expression of this. You've got two kings, you've got an ace. It's like, it's not good enough for you to be ruminating internally and, you know, doing the shadow work, doing whatever it is that you've been doing, Leo, right? That you've done it beautifully up until this point. But you've got to a point now where it's going to be a gamble. It's going to feel like a risk for you to show up fully and loudly and leonine like you are. But October is the time for this. You know, we've got the initiation over here, and then we've got a corresponding King of Wands who's going to start using it, right? When it comes to things getting done, combination of the Ace of Wands and the King of Wands is an extremely potent one, because the King obviously is active masculine energy. It is physically doing something. The King of Pentacles is like, oh, I'm literally fucking building something now, because I know what is important, I know what is valuable, and I'm going to start doing this. We're moving out of the safe place of inside, even though it hasn't been terribly comfortable for you, Leo, and that's a fucking understatement, right? To, okay, well, I've done all of that, and now I'm doing something out here. What's interesting is, it doesn't necessarily follow, and I'm not really seeing this in the cards so much, and this is why I'm saying it, it doesn't necessarily follow that in this moment of the Ace of Wands, what you're getting is your star on the horizon saying, go this way, Leo. This is more just about showing up, which is a really interesting message. To wit, then, I feel like it's probably quite important that you start mixing with a lot of people, that you start showing people who you are, that you keep talking to people, right? I said this year that it felt a little bit like Leo's magnet had somehow just like powered down really hard. And when we've retreated into ourselves, essentially what we've been doing is looking for ways to power the magnet up, but it hasn't quite felt the same. Now, I wonder if it's that self-imposed isolation that is stopping you from seeing, A, how much you've changed, but also how your magnet is now functioning at a much higher level than it was before. The only way that you're really going to see this is to get yourself out amongst people, to get yourself in the middle of things. You know, give the Wheel of Fortune a chance to put people into your path that you might not have met in any other way, right? If you're sitting at home in your living room on the sofa, the likelihood of you meeting new people who could be helpful to you moving forwards, or people that you indeed could be helpful to, you're not giving the universe an opportunity to do what it needs to do in that regard. It's time for you to come out of the house, Leo. And there's no need to do it with any sense of expectation that, you know, you need this to move forward or you need that to move forward. Like, you just got to be seen now, Leo. The rest will work itself out, I think, over the next few months. But, like, this has been incredibly important. And now you getting outside of the small space that you have been, you know, fucking fighting and slaying your own internal demons. It's time to be present with people. It's time to be out there. And let the things come to you, right? But not in your living room, right? Put yourself in a place where somebody is actually likely to turn up, you know? How interesting. Right, I'm going to go over to the extended now. If you would like to join me over there, you're very welcome to do so. We're going to dig into this a little bit more, because I feel like there's a lot of important stuff going on in October for you. And I want to make sure that you have what you need to be able to spot when the wheel is turning and it's throwing things your way, or when your magnet is like what and dragging things towards you. So if you would like to join me, you're very welcome to do that. Like I said at the beginning, you can do that on Selfie. That's the first link in the description box below. Or you can come over and join the private community. That's entirely up to you too. I'd be delighted to see you in either place. If that's not for you, that's fine. I really do feel like that hermity energy that you've been fielding so hard this year, I think we're done with that now, Leo. And October feels very fucking good indeed. So, know that I love you all very, very much. I'll see you soon.